Beneath the dust of modern-day Pakistan, buried under thousands of years of silence, lies one of humanity's most extraordinary achievements. A city that rose before Rome was imagined, before the pharaohs had carved their names into stone, before the Greek philosophers had uttered their first questions. A city of nearly 40,000 people, built with a precision that still confounds engineers today. This is Mohenjo Daro, the Mound of the Dead, and the story it tells us about who we are is one that history has been slow to accept. The Indus Valley Civilization, also known as the Harappan civilization, emerged around 3300 BCE in the northwestern regions of South Asia. At its peak, between approximately 2600 BCE and 1900 BCE, it spread across more than 1 million square kilometers, making it the largest of the three ancient urban civilizations of the Old World, surpassing even ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia in geographic reach. Its settlements stretched from what is now northeastern Afghanistan to the coast of Gujarat in India, and from the Himalayan foothills down to the shores of the Arabian Sea. More than 1,000 sites have been identified across this vast region. And yet the civilization that built all of it remains in many essential ways a mystery. Mohenjo Daro was its crown jewel. Situated along the western bank of the Indus River in what is today the Sindh province of Pakistan, the city was founded around 2500 BCE. It was not discovered by the modern world until 1921 and 1922, when Indian archaeologist Rakal Das Banerjee, working under the Archaeological Survey of India, uncovered its remains at a site that locals had long known simply as a mound. What he found beneath the earth upended the entire understanding of ancient South Asian history. Here was proof of an urban civilization in the Indian subcontinent that was contemporary with, and in many respects comparable to, ancient Sumer and dynastic Egypt. The scale of Mohenjo Daro astonishes. Archaeologists estimate that at its height, the city covered approximately 300 hectares and housed a population that may have ranged from 20,000 to as many as 50,000 people. Though the most commonly cited figure sits near 40,000, it was divided into two main sectors. The first was a raised western mound, often referred to as the Citadel, which sat on a mud brick platform roughly 12 meters above the surrounding plain. The second was the lower city to the east, a vast residential and commercial area laid out with a regularity that signals deliberate civic planning on a scale rarely seen in the ancient world. What immediately strikes researchers and visitors alike is the city's grid-like street plan. The main streets of Mohenjo Daro ran in cardinal directions, oriented roughly north to south and east to west, intersecting at near right angles. These thoroughfares were wide enough, in some cases up to 9 meters across, to allow wheeled carts to pass. Smaller lanes branched off from these main arteries, and the city blocks they created were remarkably uniform in their dimensions. Buildings were constructed predominantly from standardized fired mud bricks, and the consistency of brick size across Mohenjo Daro and dozens of other Harappan sites, in a ratio of approximately 1 to 2 to 4, for thickness, width, and length respectively, suggests a degree of standardization that implies centralized control, or at least a deeply shared cultural and technical tradition. Perhaps nothing defines Mohenjo Daro more strikingly than its water management infrastructure. The city possessed what is, by current evidence, one of the earliest and most sophisticated urban sanitation systems in the world. Nearly every residential structure that has been excavated includes a bathing area, and a significant number include private latrines. Wastewater was channeled through covered drains that ran beneath the streets and connected to larger collector drains along the main roads. These were not simple open channels, but carefully engineered brick-lined conduits with inspection holes, built to carry effluent away from homes and into the surrounding fields and waterways. For a civilization that flourished more than 4,000 years ago, the level of public hygiene infrastructure represented by Mohenjo Daro is, by any measure, extraordinary. On the Citadel Mound, archaeologists have identified a series of large public buildings whose exact functions remain a matter of scholarly debate. The most discussed of these is the structure known as the Great Bath, a large pool measuring approximately 12 meters in length, 7 meters in width, and nearly 2.5 meters in depth. It was constructed with a watertight lining of fired bricks set in gypsum mortar and sealed further with a layer of natural bitumen. Steps descended from both ends into the pool. The material culture recovered from Mohenjo Daro gives further insight into the sophistication of its inhabitants. Thousands of small square seals, typically carved from steatite and measuring just over 2 centimeters on each side, have been found across Harappan sites. These seals bear carved images of animals, including the famous unicorn-like figure of a single-horned bull, as well as short inscriptions in a script that has never been deciphered. The Indus Script, as it is known, consists of somewhere between 400 and 600 distinct signs and appears on seals, pottery, and small tablets. Despite decades of scholarly effort and the application of computational analysis, it remains one of the last major undeciphered writing systems of the ancient world. Without the ability to read what the Harappans wrote, historians are denied access to their laws, their literature, their religious beliefs, and the names of their kings, if indeed they had any. That question of who governed Mohenjo Daro and how is one of the most fascinating in the field. Unlike Mesopotamia and Egypt, no large palaces, no royal tombs, and no unmistakable monuments to individual rulers have been found at any Harappan site. There are no grand temples rising above the landscape, no inscriptions glorifying a monarch, no mass graves of servants buried to accompany a dead king. What there is instead is evidence of remarkable consistency across a civilization spanning more than 1 million square kilometers. The same brick sizes, the same seal types, the same weights and measures, and the same town planning principles appear from Harappa in the north to Dolavira in the south, and from Rakhigarhi in the east to Sutkagan Dor near the Makran coast. This has led many archaeologists, including Jonathan Mark Kenoyer of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, to suggest that Harappan society may have been governed not through military or monarchic authority, but through some form of collective elite leadership, possibly organized around merchant guilds, priestly councils, or civic institutions whose nature we cannot yet recover. The trade networks of the Indus Valley Civilization were astonishing in their reach. Harappan merchants traded with Mesopotamia, and Harappan artifacts including carnelian beads, etched stone vessels, and distinctive weights have been found at sites in present-day Iraq and Iran. Mesopotamian texts from around 2100 to 1900 BCE make reference to a maritime trading partner called Meluha, which many scholars identify as the Harappan civilization, noting imports of wood, gold, and precious stones. The Harappans also traded internally across their vast territory, with raw materials such as copper from Rajasthan, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and shells from the Gujarat coast, moving through networks that connected the great cities to distant resource zones. Yet for all its sophistication, the Indus Valley Civilization began to decline around 1900 BCE. By 1700 BCE, Mohenjo Daro and the major urban centers of the civilization had been largely abandoned. The reasons for this decline have been debated intensely for decades. The most persistent older theory, that the civilization was destroyed by invading Aryan peoples, has been largely rejected by modern archaeology. The current scholarly consensus points instead to a combination of environmental and climatic factors. Research published in the journal Nature in 2012, drawing on isotopic analysis of stalagmites and cave records from across South Asia, suggests that a prolonged weakening of the South Asian monsoon between approximately 2200 and 1700 BCE significantly reduced agricultural productivity across the region. Simultaneously, geological evidence suggests that seismic activity may have disrupted the course of rivers that sustain the major cities, including potentially the drying or diversion of the now largely dry Gagar-Hakra river system, which some researchers have proposed as a candidate for the ancient Saraswati River described in early Vedic texts. The population did not disappear. Excavations at smaller sites suggest that as the large cities were abandoned, populations dispersed into smaller rural settlements across the Gangetic Plain and into peninsular India, carrying elements of Harappan culture, technology, and possibly language with them. The late Harappan phase, which persisted in various forms until around 1300 BCE, represents a period of fragmentation rather than sudden collapse. Mohenjo Daro today is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, having been inscribed in 1980. but the site itself faces severe threats. The brick structures that survive are being eroded by rising groundwater, salt crystallization within the brickwork, and the effects of wind and rain. The Archaeological Survey of Pakistan and international organizations, including UNESCO, have periodically launched conservation efforts. But the sheer scale of the site and the complexity of the conservation challenge mean that deterioration continues. Some estimates suggest that without sustained and well-funded intervention, significant portions of the visible structures could be lost within decades. Excavations have uncovered only a fraction of the site. It is estimated that between 2/3 and 3/4 of Mohenjo Daro remains unexcavated beneath the soil. What lies beneath may yet change our understanding of the civilization in fundamental ways. Recent advances in remote sensing, ground-penetrating radar, and satellite imaging have begun to reveal the outlines of buried structures without the need to disturb the soil, and these technologies are increasingly being applied at Harappan sites across the region. The story of Mohenjo Daro is, at its core, the story of a civilization that solved many of the fundamental problems of urban life with remarkable elegance. It provided its citizens with clean water, effective sanitation, standardized goods, and long-distance trade, all without the coercive apparatus of divine kings or standing armies that defined its contemporaries. Whether that is a reflection of a genuinely more egalitarian society, or simply a reflection of what the archaeological record has preserved and what it has not, remains an open question. What is certain is that the people of the Indus Valley built something enduring, not just in baked brick, but in the human capacity for organization, ingenuity, and the quiet ambition of a civilization that asked not what a ruler could build for his own glory, but what a city could do for the people who lived in it. 4,000 years after its abandonment, Mohenjo Daro still speaks. We have not yet learned to fully understand its language. But every season of excavation, every decipherment attempt, every climate model applied to the ancient past brings us a little closer to hearing what the mound of the dead is trying to tell us about the living.